church doctrine is not static. And if the corpus that's included in magisterium covers material that has changed over the last century or even the last millennia, how does that reflect the answers it gives to various settings? And to what extent do your users need to practice the magisterium equivalent of engineering their queries to get the answer they want?
Thank you for that question. So we were very, very mindful of having a very expansive, body of work that we ingested before we launched. And so Magisterium AI, obviously, it prioritizes all the magisterial documents. And if you use it, you can have scholarly mode, reasoning mode, and then magisterial mode. And so you can also kind of bracket the searches that you want to favoritize kind of the response that you're looking for. So for example, in terms of more, let's say, modern, more progressive points of view in theological queries and theological research, we have recently ingested Nova e Vetera, which is the academic journal of the Dominicans, which is phenomenal, and we have a lot of, I think, the more contemporary thinkers there. Some of the current professors are actually cited in the documentation, which is fantastic. But I think in terms of bracketing the type of responses, because I think if you're looking for what the church teaches on certain things, I think you can get that very easily, and then all of the answers are referenced. And so you might have let's say a complex question that might have 20 or 30 different references, and then from there you can go and do your own research. But yeah, I think we try to do it with nuance. We try to do it with we're currently actively working on expanding the library catalog that we have on Access. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Raja. I work in medical publishing, and there's a lot of similar problems, and so hearing the view from the church and the view for, like, seeing something like Magisterium AI, is there an opportunity for the church and the Vatican to work with a company like Magisterium AI to think about how content is curated, how is content retrieved, how is content validated, and sort of become almost like the editor in the loop, the person that's really making sure that these tools are safe? Is this like would be a practical approach, and are you already working with with the experts?
Yeah, quickly say that we have a product advisory board with a number of wonderful theologians and priests and members of the different university faculties here in Rome and abroad. So we're always closely in line with them. And then we also work very closely with the Builders AI Forum, which is a forum on AI and trying to bring the Holy Father, the Vatican's moral voice to this conversation. And so we try to bring some of the leaders in the tech sphere who are actively working on these things and bringing them to Rome. I think it's going to be November 7th, I think is the date, but it'll be here at the Gregorian University. And so we're bringing some of the leaders from Silicon Valley, and a number of incredible theologians, professors, leaders in the church are participating, offering their voice to help custode this. We are in service of the church. We are not the church. We're simply humble Catholics working on building, trying to find a way to enter into the AI space and offer an answer, a response to these secular alternatives.
Thank you. Of course, I can't speak, again, just generally speaking, and just to put the question in terms of stuff and technology. As stated before, and as Pope Francis said, we have to build bridge thanks to the AI. So this could be a very interesting bridge, even because everything that makes our soul lighter, it would be nice to use. So I think that there is an opportunity and an option that it could be possible to do. Okay.
So I'm interested in something really practical. Recently, the dicastery for consecrated life, I mean, it's not something new, but they warned about a relatively high number of fake accounts of the current Pope, what he said, when he appeared and so on and so forth. Last year or 2 years ago, Pope Francis appeared in an anorak, which was very fashionable. And so how exactly AI can help debunk myths or fake stories created by other AI? Is there something like a fact-checking AI, any tool that we can use to verify? Or of course, I speak as a journalist, but also for any other work, it is important to verify and to reveal the truth. So if we believe there is truth, what tools can we apply that the AI offers?
Yeah, of course, as the history teach, solutions always came after problems. So probably AI, as every kind of technology, born as solutions and something to help. But of course, human beings are so different that in my hands could be a useful tool, in another one hands could turn into a weapon. And so it's not that easy to expose, but of course we think that in my mind, probably it's early to really find out, but I guess that it will be realized tools to certify the identity and the fact as a digital identity. We started from the paper ID and then we moved to the electronic ID that for some reason was weaker than the paper. So trying to improve technology, we create some problems. So technology is so powerful that common goods is not enough.
We have nothing.
No, we have, first of all, the technologies that already protect us in the stand.
Any tool?
No, something concrete is difficult because we are always facing with the standard technology, with the news as the way we have collect right now. So we are working on, because I guess that no one has.
Sister Rose able to join us? I have a question for Sister Rose. Can you hear us, Sister Rose?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. I have a question for you, and it's throwing a curveball. So a lot of the Catholic content has been heavily masculine and has heavily Western-centric. How can we bring in more female perspective? Will AI play a role in bringing in more female perspectives and more non-Western perspective in the way we promote our message, in the way we engage communities?
Well, that's an excellent question, but you have to look at who's in charge. Who are the gatekeepers right now? They're basically white men in the United States. I mean, we have India that is, of course, growing in its influence, but to have women's voices, we have to have women programmers. And those who are creating the algorithms have to be women, have to be well-educated, not just coming from one perspective. And also, when they're told to create something, to question it, what they're doing. I think that the male dominance comes from the white male gaze. And that is a problem that we've had in popular media, and it's still in, where it's coming through in AI and other technologies. If you saw the movie Coded Bias on Netflix, that explains it very well. And you can get a book by that same title. So, what we can do, it goes back to education. And so it can't just be like one office for technology or one office for communications. It has to be we have to work together, not in silos. So the dicasteries or offices for communication and education and culture have to be working together, because it's not just one solution. But I want to come back to the pastoral ministry for the family that begins on the parish level, that begins in the schools where we teach character, where we teach respect for one another from a very young age. But as more of our culture becomes profit-driven, and we see that dominance coming from the United States in a particular way, to the detriment of the common good and the human person, it calls forth from us an even greater effort to participate in things like this and to begin conversations so that people can raise their awareness and act on that awareness.
Anyone else
I couldn't hear that. That got broken up. I'm sorry.
Can you still hear us on Zoom? You won't hear us.
Thank you for that. Great. Yes, but she couldn't hear me if I unmute. Can you hear us, Sister Rose?
Now I can.
Yes, no, thank you for that very provocative answer. Most of the time, that type of answer could be very paralyzing. Because when you say that we need to dismantle
our structures, people get frozen right away, thinking that that is not possible in the world now. And I wonder, I'm going to push you a little bit harder in terms of, in concrete terms, what is it that we can do, we should do? Are there any practical suggestions that you might give us? Because every time I say that to the students, they just think that we are dreaming. It's not going to happen. The world has been like this for centuries and even millennia. Why would we think it would be different now? Can you give us some hope in terms of truly promoting change?
Well, first of all, it begins with each one of us. And so every Wednesday and Sunday, we hear the Holy Father speaking about these things. What do we do with that? How do we internalize that, take it back home, take it to our communities, and then share it on social media, to share these things? It's not, when we talk about systematic change, there's no way to overthrow it. That is true, without getting really messy. But what we can do is begin now through education and formation in the family. And where can we talk about that, where it will reach the most people? It's in the parish, the Sunday homily, in the publications, the popular publications that we put out online. It's our presence in all of these places. And repeating the same thing, but also showing how it's done by modeling good communication and good programming. I'm not a programmer, but I talk to programmers. And this is what I tell them. Are you aware of what you're doing and of how you are leaving people in and excluding others? We just can't stop. We just can't say it's impossible. Well, then, where is the gospel in all that? The gospel is constant fermentation and transformation, and it's little steps at a time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here have questions or answers would be great.
Claire. I'm not exactly sure if this can be answered by anyone, but I'd like to point it out. There was a time that there was a fake message to President of Burkina Faso attributed to the Pope. So I want to know, how does one report these deep AI fakes of religious leaders like the Holy Father or even some cardinals, like for example, Cardinal Tagle. I remember I watched the post-conclave session sponsored by this same college. So how do we report that? Do we report that through the Vatican, or do we use any, or do they have like a, in the corporate, some corporate environments use deep fake scanning tools, but those are expensive. So I don't know if the Vatican or any of you use for, that kind of tool. So that's it.
So it's difficult to answer because it's you need to be fast when you face this kind of news. Understand if they're real, they're fake, or they're just the think of someone that is not you. So we are just working at the moment to really identify a faster mechanism to address this solution. And as stated, it's not that easy because for some kind of material, just like the news with the Pope dancing in the disco, wearing a gangster jacket, it's easier to understand that it could not be him. And the other one is for the difficult news to contrast, and so it's still a hard working on trying to create a solution as soon as possible, of course.
I was thinking about all the questions that were asked here, and I was thinking that AI is a machine whose output comes out based on the data that it's trained in. So if you put in fake news, there's fake news coming out. There's no way around it. And if all the data is Western-centric or male-centric, that's information that is going to come out. And then I thought about that we have here an initiative in which people noticed that the data was secularized, and they tried to offset that by creating their own AI tool in which they introduced their data that could correct this over-secularization of data. And I was thinking, if at this moment we are still seeing the AI because it's something new, but if in the future there might not be a trend of having several AIs in competition in which each person tries to give their own contribution, and this is probably not a solution, probably might create other problems, but might not this be the trend for the future for AI?
I didn't understand at the end. So is the idea that there would be one AI or there's multiple AIs? Okay.
There's Experience.com in parallel with ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the idea will be every person that notices that there might be a deficiency, like the AI is too male-centric or too Western-centric, or this AI is producing too many fake news, whether people might not develop different AIs or different tools to offset that, and that might lead to some competition among the information.
Yeah, I think that's like there's for sure going to be a desire for people to create their own echo chambers or their own different verifiable worlds, and that's obviously very suboptimal to terrible. I think that the challenge, and this is going to be in the future, is that to train AI, to work on AI, to develop AI is incredibly costly. And I think that that's a different question for a different conference. But how are we going to arrive to this? How are we going to sustain this? I mean, that's an ethical question that has an environmental component. We spoke about it earlier about the human cost of it. We're talking about dignity, the fact that we're removing these minerals from parts of the world where people don't have access, and then we're not compensating them properly, and then we're shoving down their throats these terrible products. So I think that's something that we're really mindful of in terms of in terms of just everyone creating, you know, okay, there's a Catholic AI, a Protestant AI, an American AI, a Chinese AI. I think that the big thing also with that is data, and that, you know, we've already arrived at a point where a lot of the data has already been scraped, and so now it's, well, where can we find data? Oh, we have artificial data. I think for us, and I'll just speak for our, you know, our small organization, is that we believe completely, you know, 100% that the patrimony of the church should be in conversation with the modern problems. We have these church doctors, we have these documents, and, you know, obviously there's a lot of male-centric, you know, points of view and throughout history. But I think one thing that we're very conscious of, and we're really proud of, is that we started with the Pontifical Oriental Institute to pilot this project. And the Pontifical Oriental Institute has treasures that are representing all sorts of parts of the world that typically don't have a front row seat to, you know, making their points of view heard. And we're doing that, and we're trying to universalize that knowledge by making it free and accessible. So I think we are in a very small way trying to contribute to a response to that. And in terms of the male gaze and all that, I think we need to be humble and really bring, you know, the women to the forefront and really give them a space. And then, you know, any women coders, like, we gotta get behind them and give them all the positivity and the encouragement we can, because I completely agree.
Are there any more? Yes. One here. And we'll have a break after this question where you can ask more questions.
Hello, good morning. So I'm going to speak in the level of where I am working now. I'm teaching students. They are juniors and seniors. So it was mentioned a while ago that we always have to look for the common good, the responsibility to protect the vulnerables. So as I can see the vulnerables here, the forefront, these are the students, the youngsters. Because in reality, even though we start the formation from the family, but once they are outside the family, you will find out that these individuals, they prefer to do the things on their own, based from my experience. So that's why we see individuals, the youngsters, they do TikTok and everything. And sometimes if you ask them, why are you doing, why you keep on using that app? But they said they just enjoy it. So my question here is, how are we going to bring the AI into a language of these vulnerables, not only the students, but also to the people who are below the poverty or the grassroots, as we say? Because we all know when we talk of AI, it involves, you know, monetary. Those who can afford, then they can enjoy. But then, how can we protect them and bring the language of AI in a way that it brings protection for them in the real world?
I mentioned earlier that we see this period as an era of reflection. The next step there is we see this period as an era of reimagination. I think it's time for us to really rethink whether schools might still be the best place to educate. Maybe it's time to revisit that strategy. We are now in an age where knowledge has been devalued, because you don't need to go to a PhD school to learn deep knowledge about a certain topic. You can engage with the language models. So to a certain degree, there are lots of benefits to the devaluation of knowledge. This democratization of knowledge might chip away on hierarchies of knowledge. Hierarchies of knowledge is how power structures are maintained. Different groups of people have different accesses to knowledge. And now AI is threatening that. And to us, we could use this as an opportunity to truly reimagine what do we need to teach. We keep saying now that knowledge is out, behavior is in. But all the incentive structures are still pushing for knowledge as the valuable commodity. It's not. We should push for behavior to be the one that society should be giving priority to, which means that we have to rethink the entire incentive structure. Academia has to go in its current form. It has to be replaced by something else. So it's not enough just to dismantle academia in its current form. We have to come up with a good replacement. It's not enough to say that education is no longer going to happen in schools. We need a replacement. And that's where we bring in the young people, because the young people have crazy ideas. Old farts like me were already so fixed that this is the only way the world can operate. And every week we get proven wrong. Every week we travel to a different part of the world, we engage the young people, we expose the young people to different mindsets, and then it triggers them to reimagine, recreate the world from a clean slate. And I think we need to be doing more of that. I would say entire schools should be all about reimagination and rethinking and redesigning systems. But currently, the schools are not built for that. It's still very much hinging on ingestion of knowledge. Again, knowledge has been devalued. So we shouldn't be teaching them knowledge. We should be teaching them how to learn, how to connect with each other. So if anyone can, yes, please.
Thank you for the question. I would like to share my experience as a professor at the Gregorian University. Our system, for example, doesn't allow students to use AI for thesis, dissertation, and paper. So it's included in the Moodle system of the Gregorian that when we put the paper of the student into the system, it detects how many % AI the student used. So as a professor, I need to call his or her attendant and say, oh, here, you've used a lot of AI. But it's still, I'm in trying to continue the discussion here. I think we have to rethink the whole academe. And I'm a part of Group 4, Study Group 4, the Vatican's 10 study groups after the Synod on synodality. And we are tasked to revise the formation, the priestly formation, the Ratio Fundamentalis. And we have understood that until now we have been doing kind of a banking system. The professor knows everything, and we have to tell you that this is it. But you know, students now can just use AI and say, the professor is not, information is not correct. For example, I teach modern mission history at the Greg, so if they can easily check if what I'm talking is really according to good history, you know? So now we have to move from the academic aspect to intellectual aspect, not just focus on transmitting information. So I suggest that we develop 3 C's when it comes to also our relationship with AI. First is we have to develop in our students critical thinking. So we use AI and then we critically use whatever information we're provided with and allow discussion from an intercultural point of view. I have had that opportunity at the university because I have students from all over the world, from Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Vietnam, Philippines, Latin America. So there's that kind of possibility to do critical thinking, not just to get information, because now AI can provide you with anything under the sun. As a machine, it has a capacity that surpasses human mind to be able to get all the information that we need. So the first one, I guess, is to develop in our students critical thinking. But not only that, we have to develop also in our students creative thinking. Now, I know AI can prepare for you a poem. Say, I want a poem right now about my, so it can even write a novel for you. AI can do that. But creative thinking would mean that it's not just about preparing a literary piece, but it's about using one's situation, experience, one's tragedy, whatever it is, in human life, as a material for creative thinking. So we have to, for example, encourage short stories. I remember when I was studying theology of grace, or we call it theological anthropology, my professor was Cardinal Tagle. We didn't start with doctrine. We started with stories of tragedy, hunger, a lady who has been abused, etc. And starting with that stories, we started to also to understand human condition. And that, I think, is also important when it comes to creative thinking, that we do not start with abstract ideas, but we start with the concrete reality of human life. That's part of creative thinking. And AI cannot have all the data when it comes to human experience. So I think that's also important when it comes to creative thinking. And the last C is collaborative thinking. So I'm pretty much sure that with AI, it's very much an individual activity. I do it, I ask AI what I wanted to do, and then AI can provide me with all the information I need. But collaborative would mean that I would allow disagreement. I would allow people not to always say, you're correct. To allow opinions, multiplicity of points of view, multiple points of view. I think that's also part of collaborative thinking. So when it comes to teaching, to education, I have experience, and I think it's still in the offing, to develop these 3 C's: critical thinking, creative thinking, and collaborative thinking, and to move from the academe to actual intellectual formation that involves human experience, the whole person, relationship, etc. That, I think, is very much part of, I think, if you want to be forward-looking when it comes to education, that's important. And infuse in AI values and virtues, because that, I think, is also important. Okay, thank you.
Just one tiny bit on information. What we have learned in the last 2 years is it's impossible to teach critical thinking. In fact, we shouldn't, because we cannot. By its very nature, you cannot teach critical thinking. It has to be discovered. And the only way that you could teach critical thinking is to bring people who think differently in one room, which means that you cannot be teaching in a classroom full of medical students. You cannot be teaching in a classroom full of business students. You cannot teach in a classroom full of anthropology students. They need to be brought together. But there is resistance. Every time we propose this to rectors and deans, they say that that cannot happen because each school, each department has its own set of egos, has its own set of politics. And again, we're seeing here the resistance to change. So I love the phrase critical thinking, but in reality, it is something that is impossible to teach. You could role model it, and the way to role model that is to allow yourself to constantly converse with people who may not share your own worldviews. And that is very, very threatening to one's amygdala, because our survival instinct would kick in. I know what is right. I am a good person. And it's impossible for me to be contributing to the problem. So this is where epistemic humility comes in again. And then one final thought. You could teach epistemic humility all you want, but if the world is still preserving incentive structures that are perverse, it's pointless. So we're banging our heads against the wall. It's finally cracking, and we didn't realize that there's another wall outside that wall. And this is the wall where techno-feudalists are in control, where the less than 1% is narrating our present and future. So again, I go back to my original comment that the only way for us to truly leverage the value of this very powerful technology is to fix the world. And how to do that, I don't know. So with that, I think we're going to have a very short break, and then we come back here and we engage more people in a panel discussion. Thank you.